Welcome to The Shoreline, brought to you by Shores and Islands, Ohio, where finding your Lake Erie love is a sure thing. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Jill Bauer, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Dayton Barnett. I am the Public Relations Manager at Shores and Islands, Ohio, and Dayton manages our social media. Together, we bring you The Shoreline every week to give you the inside scoop on what's happening here in our island and coastal communities. And we love to talk about events and attractions we hope you'll want to know more about, and hopefully plan a visit to come see us. So, hey, Dayton, how's it going today?
Hello. It is going great. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. I am kind of floored at how quickly summer is flying by.
We are halfway through August already.
Halfway through August already. That's insane. But we've got some big things on the horizon, most notably this week, right? We have Bash on the Bay coming up.
We do. We have Bash on the Bay coming up. Also have, I think, Big Splash?
Yes, Big Splash Raffle.
Big Splash is coming up, which I need to get into this year. I walked around it last year, and like a prize like every 5 minutes is insane. It's like you have to.
Fun event.
Yeah, we got that. And then towards the end of the month, we have the Milan Melon Festival, which I'm making it a point to get to this year because I've missed the last two of them.
Oh, you are missing out. You know what the best thing about the Milan Melon Festival is? Toff's ice cream.
Yes, I hear about the ice cream. So yeah, we got some big things going on this month around all the tiny bits and pieces in between.
Yeah, so I'm kind of jumping ahead into our topic for today, but we're going to be talking about the Liberty Aviation Museum and some of the flight experiences. Now, have you done that, Dayton? Did I imagine that?
I have not. I unfortunately have not for whatever reason. I've been to the museum a couple of times, but I've never done any of the flight stuff.
All right. Well, we'll have to get that on your schedule because that would probably be some cool video, right?
Absolutely.
So, folks, if you're not already, make sure you follow along with Dayton online and be sure to engage on his posts. He loves getting comments, questions, and even suggestions for where he should go next. And I'm sure you will see some content from Bash on the Bay this week. I know you're planning to go out there and some of the other upcoming things that we chatted about. So make sure you're following along. You can find all those links on our website, shoresandislands.com. So as I mentioned, today we are taking off for high-flying adventure. One of the region's year-round attractions, the Liberty Aviation Museum, showcases operational historical aircraft and vehicles, including Georgie's Gal, a World War II B-25 Mitchell bomber, a U.S. Navy World War II TBM Avenger, a World War II PT boat, and more. You can also witness the restoration of a 1929 Ford Trimotor and dine in the 1950s era themed Tin Goose Diner. Joining us on the Shoreline today is Jim Priebe. Jim is the Communications and Marketing Coordinator at Liberty Aviation Museum since 2021. Prior to that, Jim was a small business owner, a production manager in construction, and in the baking industry before loosely retiring. And it sounds like a couple of his childhood friends pulled him out of that retirement and into promoting this gem of a museum, which is located adjacent to the Erie-Ottawa International Airport in Port Clinton, which of course comes in handy when you have visiting and touring aircraft as part of your exhibits. It's also adjacent to the Shores and Islands, Ohio Welcome Center in Port Clinton. So if you can find us, you can find them and vice versa. Welcome to the Shoreline, Jim.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about the museum, some of its main collections and whatnot?
Well, the idea of the museum actually started in 1994. It took them a little while to find a location and get one constructed, get a museum building constructed. That began in 2012, and we added on right away in 2015, and we might even be thinking about maybe doing that again. But you mentioned some of our key attractions in your opening there. The Ford Trimotor from 1928 was the first acquisition that the museum made, and is kind of our feature this year because we have owned it for 9 years now, and it now has become it hasn't been here permanently in our museum, but it's been around the country taking folks in other communities for rides. Now we have it here permanently, and we're delighted to say that we will be taking our own neighbors and friends and guests for rides in the Ford Trimotor that we now own fully and have here on display. B-25, you mentioned the Mitchell bomber. That's also one of our most popular ones because it is an astounding renovation of an existing World War II aircraft. It's absolutely beautiful.
So more than just aircraft, what are some of the other unique exhibits that you guys have there?
Well, we have the supporting things that go along with the aircraft from the period of time from the World War stuff, for example, the artillery and rifles and things like that from that period of time. We also have a nice collection of vintage cars on our floor from a variety of viewpoints from 1931 all the way up into a Corvette from the early 60s. Kind of the uniqueness of what I see, which is why they kicking and screaming dragged me back into this museum job, was the Hogan's Heroes display. Now, you can tell how, if you know what the Hogan's Heroes TV show was, you can get an idea of how old you are. But
vaguely.
Yes, our museum has what is known as the world's largest collection of Hogan's Heroes memorabilia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that is kind of a fascinating thing for a lot of folks. Our CEO and he is collector of oddball things, I guess, and that happens to be one of them. And another thing that kind of fell to us by luck, if you would say, is the Goodyear bus. If you've been through the museum, you see the bus with the big Goodyear logo on it, and you think, what is that? What did that come from? Where did that come from, and how did we get that? An odd story with that, which I find so fascinating every time I tell it, is that our CEO was looking for a vintage bus that he could convert into a motorhome to use for camping. Came across that one and realized that once he saw that it was all rusty and really ready for the junk heap, and realized that it had an aviation connection. I said, how profound would that be? So we spent 2 years and a lot of money to have it restored, and it's an interesting part of the collection, and there's some new things going to be happening with that bus real soon.
And that bus would have been a support vehicle for the actual Goodyear blimp, which a lot of people maybe don't realize actually is from Ohio, is from Akron, Ohio.
Right.
That vehicle probably had some local connections as well.
Indeed, yes. It being made here, in Ohio, the bus itself was manufactured here, and some of the other things that it was used for, but primarily it was used as an anchor for the blimps as they toured around the country.
Now, you've mentioned a bus and some vehicles and some aircraft. So for somebody who hasn't visited the museum, tell us a little bit about the layout, the fact that it's an actual hangar and that you actually have 2 full hangars, correct?
2 full aircraft hangars, yes. And all 3, there's 3 doors. All 3 doors are different sizes to accommodate different type of aircraft. Our first one, the main one that was built in 2012, is where we keep our automobiles, and the Georgie's gal is occasionally in there, but we move things around to keep things interesting and to kind of feature different accessories and different, just doing different things with the displays. But the second hangar is, we call it the working hangar, the working part of it, because one of the things that makes us unique as far as a museum goes, at least we feel, is that every display that we have, every automobile, every fire truck, every aircraft, it has to work. They're not static displays. They're
not
solid.
Just to look at.
They're not just to look at. The cars are we unfortunately, on a really bad day, we got to take the cars and drive them around the grounds to keep them lubricated and stuff. And the airplanes have to fly, and everything has to work. And that's something that's really important to us. And that separates us from some of the other museums of our size and caliber.
That is really cool. And one of the things that you also do back in your second hangar is the Ford Tri-Motor Restoration Project. For people that are listening that maybe don't even know the significance of the Ford Tri-Motor or what that means to this area, can you tell us that story a little bit and why you're restoring one?
The Tri-Motor was an aircraft that was purchased. It was built by Henry Ford. He built 199 of them, and it was used in our area effectively as a school bus to take children to and from the islands which is right off the southern shore of Lake Erie, to take the children back and forth to school. So plane would land on the island, children would get on board, they'd fly here to local schools, and at the end of the day, they'd reverse the process. And of course, the airplanes also did things like take the mail back and forth to it, but it was an integral part of keeping the islands part of this involved in alive and healthy in the cold winters and things like that around here.
And you're actually building one.
That is true. We refer to it as a renovation because you can't build one from scratch. There have to be some parts from an original
parts, right? Yeah.
Which there are on this one, but this is done by a different organization that is supported here in the museum. We have ours that we fly, and we have this one that is being effectively renovated or rebuilt from scratch. It is from scratch with very few original parts. And if you've been coming to the museum, you've seen that happen over, I think we're on year 13.
Yeah, I've seen the changes over the years there, and so you never know when you're visiting the museum, you might actually see people doing renovation work right there on that aircraft. Do you have any idea when you expect to finish that piece?
It depends on who you ask. If you ask the finance guys, they say it's sooner than the guys who are actually building the craft, building the plane. But we are hoping that will be part of our flying Ford tri-motor repair about this time next year.
Very cool.
You didn't hear that from me.
I mean, that's what we're here for, the scoop.
We like the scoop.
Yeah, but it's this particular one is being repainted like the ones that were used for the school for the island airlines from the 30s that flew all the way through the 1980s.
Very cool.
Yeah, been in the museum a couple of times. It's definitely a cool place and definitely something you must check out. I will have to say, yes, the hangar with all of the cars, probably one of my favorites. Switching motor gears a little bit, it's worth a mention. You guys have one of the region's only 1950s era All-American diner on site, Tin Goose. I have not been, but I have only heard the greatest of things and that I must go. How did that icon get to be here? And, what is it? What's the visit like there?
Came to be in that our CEO in the eclectic thing, along with the Hogan's Heroes and other things. He's a foodie in terms of he's a fan of the diners and of that period of time. So when this diner became available for sale, we bought it in Pennsylvania, brought here to Cleveland. It was completely renovated and installed attached to the museum. We added on to it immediately for a couple of reasons. One, so we can have more chairs, more tables, and so that we didn't have to build a separate restroom facilities for that particular business, so that when the museum opened, it was part of it, and we consider it part of its own display. It's part of the history lesson that we're trying to teach here, so it's everything is done so that it sounds and feels like it would have had you been walking into it in 1952 in Pennsylvania.
What is the menu like at the Tin Goose Diner? What can you eat there?
Well, it varies from time to time. We're known for our hamburgers, it seems. It seems to be one of the best-selling things that we have. We do a lot with pancakes and your typical eggs, and what you would kind of expect in your diner. It's simpler. There's not a whole lot of mystery in terms of how you cook an egg and so on. It's just a matter of it's part of the atmosphere. I think we envision long term of our servers dressing the part and almost taking on the role of a server in the 50s.
It is really a cool thing, and I believe the proceeds from dining there actually go to support the mission of the museum as well, correct?
That is correct. We are a 501c3 corporation as the museum, and the diner does tie right into that.
And while you're eating there, you might be able to catch a glimpse of the amazing aircraft coming in and out of the airport next door. And, with the airport and the museum there, you guys host a lot of special events throughout the year, including flying experiences. As you mentioned, all of your aircraft is functional, and you also host a lot of visiting aircraft. So what kind of experiences do you have that are coming up maybe from late August through the end of the year that people can watch out for?
Probably the most fascinating for me is the helicopters. We have the Yankee Huey, which is the typical kind of the military helicopter you might envision from the Vietnam era.
Open air, right? Like that doesn't have doors?
Yes, that's correct. That's the way it's usually flown. That is correct, the way it is. And then we also have some of the fast-flying attack helicopters where they'll have a top speed close to 200 miles an hour. And you are riding in there with one other person who is the pilot who actually sits behind you if you take that ride. And that is a thrill like you wouldn't believe. You won't quickly forget that ride, taking a ride in a helicopter at that speed.
That's what you need to get there for, Dayton.
Yeah, I definitely need to. It was really fun. I've only been in the helicopter once. It was awesome. It was last year, actually, over in Blue Bay.
Yeah.
Can history and or aircraft enthusiasts, can they get involved with this anyway? Of course, donating as possible as well.
Well, yeah. As in any undertaking that's something like this, finances are very, very tight. It's very difficult to manage. So we look forward to working with volunteers. Some of our volunteers are our longest term employees, if you would. They've been with us the longest, and they know their stuff. They become experts in certain areas of the museum that we can't thank them enough for what it is that they do. We are hoping to start another training class for volunteers here shortly. So if anybody's interested, please give the museum a call, and we'll get you started on that program. And it's very, very rewarding when you can talk to people about things that have happened in the past. A story for me is when I met a gentleman who was evacuated on a Huey helicopter from Vietnam. So when he actually heard the sound of the airplanes to the aircraft, it brought tears to his eyes, and it does for me on occasion. And
Wow.
you get to relate to people in a different way when you talk about history, and something like that's very real to a lot of folks, and it's important that we keep it real.
Does that happen often anymore, that you have people that have ties to, whether it's themselves or a grandparent or a father or something that has ties to these aircraft and vehicles, that they come to the museum and tell you their stories?
Yes, we get a lot of stories, and we're getting fewer of them, of course, because the population is aging away. I met a gentleman last year who was celebrating his 90th birthday here at the museum, and he came to look at a tank model that he had served in, and to watch the emotions in his face as he went through it and looked at it was those important what would you call it? Important lessons we can't forget as a culture.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be really touching to be a part of. And as you said, that population is aging, but they have ancestors, right? We have children, grandchildren, whatever. We
Right.
need to not forget. We need to go
The
and
stories that
acknowledge
must be told.
all of that. Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned all of the amazing things there are to see there: the aircraft, the vehicles, the movie memorabilia, the television memorabilia. There's just some really neat collections. So we're towards the end of summer. I'm sure that you have some different hours, but you are open year round. Currently, what are your hours, and what does it cost to visit the museum?
Hours are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, 10 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. So we're open 7 days a week. The current admission price is $12, but there are discounts off of that.
Oh, great.
Does the diner run the same hours? I'm just curious myself.
Diner opens earlier. They're the Hardy Bunch. They're up at about, I think they open the diner this time of year at 8 a.m.
Awesome.
And they close at 3 during the week.
For any more questions and information like that, where can people go to get more information for the Liberty Aviation Museum?
LibertyAviationMuseum.org. We couldn't think of a longer name to fit in there, but that will get you to that. And that's our website, and it has listings of all the things, the visiting aircraft that we might have, even introduces you to some of our volunteers and some of our employees, and can give you the hours and other things that are happening here.
Great. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us today, Jim?
Well, we've got a lot of good things coming up. Our Liberty Aviation Museum Military Vehicle Show, which is one of our more popular events of the summer, that's going to come up in the first weekend in September. Right after that, we have a national convention of Grumman pilots and owners. And what makes that unique is there'll be 70 aircraft that aren't normally flying our skies that will be flying around here that week. And they have games. I call them their reindeer games, but they have some very interesting things that, as a spectator, you might find interesting. And a little thing that kind of goes back to our history in that is that there is a Rattlesnake Island is the post office is issuing a stamp that memorializing Rattlesnake Island, and that stamp is a drawing of our Ford trimotor aircraft.
Oh, very cool!
And that stamp is going to be introduced on September 10th. A little ceremony here that's open to the public here at the museum.
One of my favorite exhibits is the Island Airlines exhibit, the Ford Trimotor. It's kind of mind-blowing to look back at the past, and even the seats on the aircraft were just wicker chairs. No seatbelts, no airbags or anything like that.
Yep.
This is a pretty cool collection. So make sure, again, that you check out that website. It was libertyaviationmuseum.org. You can get all the details on their hours and special events and how you can make a reservation if you want to take part in one of those really cool flying experiences. So thank you, Jim, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Jim Priebe from the Liberty Aviation Museum. And of course, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a minute of the action here in Shores and Islands, Ohio. You can find more information, including past episodes of this podcast, online at shoresandislands.com. Dayton and I will see you next time on The Shoreline.